So hello everyone and welcome to the Village of Lytton's Committee of the Whole meeting for May 5th. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, but it is not being live streamed. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. I call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 11 a.m. To begin, I'd like to recognize that we're meeting here today on the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Ntlaka'an people. All right, can I please have a motion to adopt the agenda for today? So moved. Thank you, Councillor McCann. Seconded. Councillor Toss. All those in favor? And carried. All right, we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes. Just go to one thing here on the screen. There, now I can see everybody. So adoption of the minutes, please. We need a motion. Sure. Ross, and seconded by Councillor McCann. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to item number 5, which is public comment. And Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So this is the public portion of the meeting. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen and then click raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and you'll be asked to unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to please state and spell your name and say your address. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. Call for a second time. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function now. And seeing nothing online, Your Worship, is there anyone there at Parish Hall?
Yes, there's no one in the hall today.
All right, so that completes the public comment portion of the meeting. Back to you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 6, which is why we're here. And we have a report regarding the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. And I believe we have Daryl there. There he is, or Diane, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to provide an introduction, Mayor O'Connor. Thank you. This is our reporting back on a study that was done on the wastewater treatment plant capacity and what potential upgrades might be needed. I just wanted to remind everyone that this is pursuant to the ICIP and Investing in Canadian Infrastructure Projects grant that we received for improvements to the sewer collection and treatment system. So we have one large project underway in the village where we're replacing the pipe down Center Lane and along First over to West Lane. And then this was another significant project that was in that grant application, and that was to look at improvements required to the wastewater treatment plant. So I just want to remind everyone this is kind of the beginning of that process. And so Daryl has the report from the engineers and is going to give us some of the highlights of what they found when they looked at the existing plant compared to its usage and what recommendations are being made for the future. So over to you, Daryl. Thank you.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. Yes, so earlier this year, we contracted True Consulting to evaluate feasibility and requirements for improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. So we have a short PowerPoint presentation to go through. So as part of the study, we asked True to look at the population projections for the community to evaluate the current treatment capacity, because there was some uncertainty from operations exactly what the treatment capacity was of the existing configuration. And then also to look at the future capacity requirements, look at some existing treatment and alternative treatment technologies that we may consider. And then provide some recommendations for plant improvements, and then provide some costing of the improvements. Next slide, please. So in terms of high level of what they found, key issues that were identified, there's a lack of standby power. So if we have a power outage, it's an issue for the treatment of the influent going into the plant. There's some issues with confined space entry. For example, the UV chamber, it doesn't have proper regulatory requirements for access for maintaining it. There's also requirement current regulations for an additional UV reactor and a duplex setup. Other things that were noted that would be beneficial for improvements. There's a lack of fine screening. So right now we have some core screening, but what the fine screening would assist with is pulling some of the grit out of the plant. So that'll the equipment and such pumps and so forth will have a better longevity. One thing that was identified as well from a previous report and from True was electrical panel lockout. Right now we have a 600-volt panel and there's no lockout on it, so there's some hazard there, particularly if you have maybe junior operators, that sort of thing coming into the plant. So we want to address that. We also need SCADA improvements so we can remotely monitor the plant performance and identify issues early and quickly so we can address them. There's an identification for some improvements to the blower room ventilation. And then we also looked at what do we need for capacity for growth. So in terms of the options that were considered, there was 4 things that we looked at, or True looked at. One, we looked at the existing sequencing batch reactor expansion. We looked at a lagoon bypass. They looked at a new membrane bioreactor process and a moving bed bioreactor process. Now, in terms of the mechanical processes, they're all sort of variations on a different theme. They all use various biological processes to treat pollutants in the influent coming into the plant. So one of the things we looked at was we want to evaluate what is the capital cost going to be, what's the operational implications, and what is the functionality? How easy is it to operate the plant? What are the implications for discharge, that sort of thing? So really what we found is that the existing SBR plant is appropriate for what the community needs. One of the things that's been identified from past studies, the possibility of lagoon bypass, it doesn't really look appropriate for a number of reasons. One is that a lagoon bypass would not be a standalone treatment. It would be basically to buffer the plant in case of power failure. So the influent would bypass and would flow into a lagoon. It would not be treated, so it would either discharge untreated to the Fraser River, or it would have to be pumped back into the plant, which creates operational issues. So that really isn't really a good alternative. The other
Well, before you continue, I don't understand what SBR is. SBR stands for
sequencing batch reactor. It's just the style of mechanical treatment. So right now, influte comes into the plant. It's pre-screened. It goes to, right now we have 2 cells, so it goes into a treatment process. Treatment process typically lasts about 4 hours. So there's some aeration that happens, which accelerates the renovation of the pollutants in the wastewater.
Okay. So that's the batches. So the single batch. Say again. The R is
sequencing batch reactors. So it basically goes through a series of treatment processes, largely within the existing basin. So the treatment happens in the basin. Once it reaches a certain level, I think it's a 2-hour process. Then it goes through a settling and a decant phase where
we got that. I just needed to know the acronym. Thanks, Daryl.
Oh, I see. Okay, apologies.
And then also when you're talking about the lagoon bypass, I'm getting that you're saying it's not particularly appropriate, but I still don't understand what you're talking about when you say a lagoon bypass.
Okay, yeah, lagoon is a typical process where it's there's a large area of land. It's basically like a dugout where you would have almost like a pond. So
So that's what's there now.
no, no, we have SBR, so sequencing batch reactor setup. So there's two basins.
Okay, but the lagoon is what?
Lagoon is like a large pond.
No, we have a lagoon now. No,
No,
Jeff
we
was
do,
shaking
no,
her
we do
head.
not. No, we do not. A lagoon would go down
That's
essentially where the laydown
That's
area
a
is.
settling pond. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to get my definitions correct before
Right.
we
Okay.
continue. So that's called a settling pond, what we have now.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
What we have now down there, which we toured this morning, is called a settling pond. I've been calling it a lagoon, so I need to know what I'm talking about.
Daryl, I think she's talking about what's outside the fence down below.
The ship pond.
Okay, there's also yeah, there as part of the process, there is a settling area for solids.
Okay, so that's different from the lagoon that we were suggesting that would not be a good idea.
Yes.
The lagoon bypass is another pond-like structure that would take effluent if there was a power outage, for example.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
So
thank you. That's
if
all I
there was
needed to know.
if there was a power failure and we couldn't treat
Okay,
couldn't treat the wastewater, it would go
I just want to make sure I know what you're talking about
right,
because
right.
it's a
right.
different language. Thank you.
Yeah, the drying bed that you observe, that's normally dry. That's kind of the final process in the disposal of solids. That's different from a lagoon because a lagoon would be an earlier process for treating of the influent into the plant.
Okay, and you're saying that's a bad idea because?
It's a bad idea because we don't really have a lot of land. It's going to take up a lot of area. It's close to the community. So, you could have, aesthetic issues, visually and odor issues.
Yep.
It's a bad idea because it would be infrequently used and you would need a continuation of a biomass. So basically, it would continue to treat any influent before it could be discharged. But in the case that it was proposed, it would not be effective because you would be loading it, then you would be draining it or pumping it back into the plant for treatment.
Okay.
And then it would be dry and just be an open pit, basically, right? So it would only it would be used basically when you'd have a power failure, is when it would be used. So basically, wastewater would be bypassed directly from our existing basins that we have there and into this lagoon.
Okay.
I see.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay. Yeah, and then so they also looked at different styles of mechanical processes. The issue is that your capital costs would be a lot higher because essentially you're replacing the complete plant. You would need new building infrastructure to house these. So cost-wise, it's not really effective use of our grant funding. Operationally, there are probably not a lot of differences. Like in a membrane bioreactor, in terms of functionality, there's some opportunity for reuse of the effluent that is discharged from the plant because it comes out at a fairly high quality. And otherwise, I mean, operationally, if it was a moving bed bioreactor process, it wouldn't be a lot of difference in terms of operation for the operators. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, the findings of the study are that the existing SBR technology is appropriate. Capacity may simply be increased by just adding additional basins. Right now we have 2 basins. Future expansion we'll discuss in a slide further on. We do need a 3rd basin now, and that's not necessarily because of treatment, because right now our flows are so low that we are treating and meeting discharge requirements. But regulatory requirements, they do require that if you have one basin out of commission, that you must provide at least 75% capacity of your design, and we do not meet that. So we do need in the near term to add at least a third basin. Fourth basin, I looked at, and I've got another slide that I'll discuss in a little bit. But a fourth basin, irregardless, would be needed in about 20-year time horizon. There is some urgent requirements, and that's largely to implement backup power and also implement SCADA. So we have supervisory control remotely, so we can address issues early. And we've also, in terms of the funding, they have looked at what the costs are and some of the near-term improvements we can cover in our existing grant allocation. Next slide, please. So our initial upgrading, we would be considering looking at electrical panel lockout, adding SCADA into the monitoring, and adding the backup power. We are currently specifying through True Consulting with the electrical engineer to specify our backup generator requirements so we can get those long order items ordered, and we can get going with those improvements. For future improvements, we'll be looking at adding 1 or 2 basins, also upgrading the UV reactors, adding a duplex setup so we meet current regulatory requirements, improving the blower room ventilation, and also adding some pre-screening. And there's going to be some associated other improvements that would come along with all these improvements as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so this was I looked at the populations and the flows that True had looked at. So True looked at wastewater flows over the last 15 years or so, and there was some gap in the data. But they did find a range of flows. So what I assumed was from their recommendations, per capita flow of 350 liters per person per day for waste generation. I also stress tested flows, looked at higher flows because there was some periods in time, and I think it was probably pre-metering where flows appeared to be a little bit higher. There's also a criteria for adding infiltration. What we found through the study and evaluation with looking at rainfall data, that there wasn't a strong correlation with rainwater and groundwater flows causing infiltration into the system. So we didn't factor that in. Irregardless, from my stress test, what it really showed was that in about 20 years, we are going to need 4 cells or 4 basins. Right now, in the current slide that you see there with the flows that I had estimated, we could probably get by with 3, but likely going to be 4. And if we looked at the higher wastewater flows and infiltration, we would need 4 basins in 20 years. As well,
Can
on
I ask
top of
a
that,
question?
Yes.
Like, just so that we're clear, when you say system groundwater flows impact the system, is that through storm drains, or what do you mean when it rains, it impacts the sewer?
There's a standard criteria for estimating wastewater generation, and standard protocols are to include a factor for infiltration into your pipes. So, for example, the pipes that Extreme is out on site putting in right now, you would estimate a amount of wastewater, or not wastewater, but groundwater entering the system through leaky joints and through manholes and such.
So what you're finding now is that's happening when there's heavy rains, that our sewer is more taxed.
No, we're actually not seeing that because the groundwater in Lytton is a lot lower, and because of the nature of the soils, we don't see a lot of groundwater
Infiltration.
impacting the storms or the sanitary sewers.
So it's
there-
a formula then, it's a
It's
formula.
correct.
Okay.
It's correct. It's a form. There's different formulas. The one that currently is being used for this case and similar to other districts such as Kamloops, I believe they use like 7,000 liters per day per hectare. So that's what you would factor in for infiltration. But looking at from about, I think it was around 2008, and then overlaying that with rainwater data that they collected, we didn't see much of a correlation in terms of rainfall and increased flows in the sewer system.
Wouldn't they also have, like, it doesn't make sense to me that you'd have water coming into the pipes, or say like whatever the groundwater, I guess, coming into the sewer pipes through joints or whatnot, but you wouldn't have it exiting. To me, you would think that you would lose water as well if you had a leaky joint. I don't understand that.
Yes, that is the case, and it depends on the circumstances. If you have a fair bit of groundwater around your pipe, you would get infiltration, but that is totally correct. And I think that's a little bit more what we see in Lytton. We see that, especially with the aging clay tile pipe, we see the wastewater actually exiting.
Exiting more than entering. Okay,
That's
thank
right.
you.
That's right. Absolutely, 100%.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yes. So, and then also on top of that, so the per capita flow that I mentioned, that's to estimate the residential flow. There's also a component for commercial and institutional, so the school, restaurants, dental, doctor, that sort of thing. And one of the things they noticed as well was a high summer loading in August and September, and we identified that as possibly cause of the forestry camp, fire camp that occupies Lytton in the summer. Next slide, please. That's it. So yeah, just open it up to discussion and questions.
Thank you, Daryl. So a few of us were able to go down just before the meeting here and have a quick tour. So I appreciated whoever organized that because some of the terms, like Councillor Toss mentioned earlier, some of it, is language we're not familiar with, but things like the UV chamber and screening and the SCADA down there. It was really great to be able to have that background. I'm going to open it up for questions or comments from council. Does anybody have any?
Yeah,
Councillor.
I apologize for being late, and I tried to make the tour, but I was stuck in a ferry lineup. So I missed the very beginning of your presentation. I know, and so this question may not even be relevant. I've heard comments made in the past about covering the whole facility. Was that part of your discussion or overview?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Why would you want to do that?
I don't know why they would want to do it, but I've just heard it mentioned several times.
Okay. Councillor Toss.
I understand that this is all going to take time and that, but what's stopping us from just purchasing a generator for backup power and for securing the I want to call it the lagoon, but it's the settling fund. So can we expedite those two items? Because they're safety.
Yes, we do want to use an electrical engineer to get the proper sizing, just to make sure that it's going to be appropriate, because you don't want to have issues with that.
Who is our electrical engineer?
Sorry?
Who is our electrical engineer?
For operations, we typically use Exceed Engineering, but that's also the sub-consultant at True Consulting through when we submitted.
Do we have an electrical engineer?
Yeah, we use Exceed Electrical Engineering.
Thank you.
And it's the same electrical engineer that True had proposed in their RFP evaluation.
So we are waiting, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, you have a follow-up question?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple actually. So we're waiting for the electrical engineer to give us the information on what size of generator we need. That's what's holding us back.
Well, the next stage is we're going to have to proceed to a detailed design phase.
So you cannot do that without, you cannot like put up signs and a fence and buy a generator before you go through this process?
No, you want to make sure this is properly done. So you would the electrical engineer would specify this.
So I think, Daryl, like from what I'm discovered through my research, that our settling pond is in huge violation right now. We're in contravention of a whole bunch of rules around securing an effluent pond. Is there any way we can get a fence and a sign up?
So we did hear today that that's on the list of things.
I'm asking Diane or Daryl.
Yeah, I think that's all going to be part of the process that we will, there's going to be improvements to the sludge handling component.
Is there any estimated time when we might be able to secure that settling pond and get the barbed wire that's all wrapped up around the outside removed and secure that for safety reasons? And I believe that it's also toxic. Like I've been told there could be like HIV in there and it's no place for a kid to run into besides the barbed wire around it.
Yeah, I think we will discuss that with True and our operations crew and see what we can do there on an accelerated timeframe.
I think that would be excellent to get that going because I have extreme concerns about walking by that every day.
All right, Councillor McCann, do you have any comments, questions?
Mostly I'm encouraged to hear about the generator because that is clearly a priority and that it makes things work a lot better and worry-free. And as things go forward, is there any extra training that will be required with any of the changes that are recommended to the system as different people come on staff? Like how much training is required and what kind of certification do people need to be able to operate the systems that you're suggesting?
Yes, we one of the things we wanted was to keep operations as simple as possible and maintain current operational requirements. So we wanted to minimize the change in impact because long term you've got to pay operators and so forth. So we didn't want increased complexity requiring either additional operators or additional training. Of course, ongoing training is always part of the EOCP requirements for the operators. And right now we lean heavily on our merit operator that comes through and with our operators on staff. I think we'd be fine with the proposed improvements. It should really minimize any changes to the operational aspects.
Okay, so what kind of testing happens? Like the staff does some testing and who do they report their testing? How does all that system work? I'm not really familiar with that.
Yeah, right now we're on the ticket is held by Kevin. So right now we do quarterly samples. So staff do regular samples. They go into the lab and we report to the federal authorities. And actually they've had a couple of site inspections and actually performed some of their own testing as well. And they were happy with the performance. So,
and it's federal because it's going into the Fraser River. Is that why it's federal?
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Diane, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify when Councillor Toss was asking about the electrical engineer and stuff, just to kind of close the loop on that discussion. So the True Consulting is our pre-qualified engineer that we did through our pre-qualification process last year. Exceed Engineering was not one of the pre-qualified engineers. However, they've done similar work for us at the water treatment plant on the SCADA system and on the backup generator there. And we felt it was important to kind of tie those two together. And True Consulting were comfortable working with Exceed on that project. So I just wanted to clarify how that all kind of fits together. You may remember we've talked about this SCADA system and this backup power for a while now, but we weren't able to move forward on the backup power till we knew what size plant we were going to end up with, because we wouldn't have the right size generator, for the ultimate solution. So we're kind of going along through the steps to make sure that we have all the right pieces in the end. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle, do you have any comments or?
No.
One of your slides, Daryl, showed some of the initial upgrades and then future upgrades. And I know that funding was announced for the entire upgrade. So does the funding cover both the initial and the future upgrades? Will the funding cover all of those things that you listed?
No, so that's why I divided those. I didn't
Okay.
talk about the actual costs, but in our grant allocation that we presented to council last May, we had a residual amount that we reserved for wastewater treatment plant improvements. So the amount that they broke it down. And the short-term improvements, they were able to fit within our existing grant allocation. There is some longer-term improvements that will cost more. So we'll have to monitor how our grant allocations go along. So for example, if we come under budget, there's an opportunity there where we can do more improvements. Otherwise, we'll have to explore additional grants to complete ultimate improvements to the plant.
Okay, that's what I figured. Thank you for explaining that. So in those initial upgrades was things like the generator and
yeah,
SCADA
actually,
system.
they estimated we could do a third cell, or third basin. Additionally, we could do the SCADA and we could do the backup power. And that's at a
great.
that was at a class C level.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Are there any other comments or questions, Councillor Lightfoot?
Again, I'm sorry I missed the beginning of your presentation, but I'm just wondering, was there any examination of the integrity of the current basins that are there? I know in the past there was a bit of a concern.
Yes, they actually did look at they did a condition assessment. And largely the condition was that they were actually in fairly good shape. The key issues was a lack of backup power, some issues with the UV system, and that was mostly it. The other, for the basins themselves, there was they weren't ranked like right at the top for condition, but they were still in good condition.
And if I may continue, so if you put in a third and fourth basin, where physically would that be positioned? To the south of the existing, or?
Yes. So the plan would be likely, now this is, pending detailed design, of course, because we have to put in a number of, we're going to have to look at where we're going to put in an additional UV chamber, where we're going to put in our pre-screening area. But the general thought is that we would expand to the south with the new basins.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. I don't think there's any other questions regarding that. We appreciate the information. Absolutely. And look forward to some more decisions, I guess, to council coming forward with this grant funding we received for the upgrade. Okay, we will.
Yeah, and for upcoming, we will be planning to get design proposals. So at such time, we will be bringing those forward to council.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll move on to 6.2, which is the site alteration review. And we do
need a motion.
We do need a motion, thank you, to accept this report for information. And a seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. All those in favor? Carried. Now we'll move on to site alteration review. And there's Carolyn online.
Good morning. This report is before you for presentation and introduces for your consideration or for your information the site alteration permit process. Um, the intent of this is to provide awareness to property owners and their contractors of the submission requirements when altering their lands for construction. Most municipalities in BC have a permitting process. We actually had Maggie Cross, the planning assistant, do some research. But in this case, staff believe that the reviews only required as less permission, but more just awareness of information that the property owner and their contractors need to be aware of. Um, the intent, for example, is to ensure that the applicant is aware of the archaeological, water and sewer services and lines, road access, utilities, extent of property lines, drainage and easements, and stat right of ways. So it's really just a flag as part of the building permit process. And there, Lisa has just popped up that. So it's a really basic preliminary review. Also, because we also don't have a development permit process right now, this just allows us to get in there a little earlier just to see that they're on the right track. And a good example is perhaps utilities and hydro, making sure that they've been in touch with BC Hydro, or they're aware that there's a statutory right of way on their property that might be a sewer line. So it's really just about awareness. And that's my presentation.
Yeah, that's great. I think this is absolutely fantastic. I was talking to somebody yesterday who would really love to come to Lytton and build, but they didn't even understand all the different steps and pieces that they need to consider, right? So I think something like this, putting it all in one form, one place is awesome. I'll just open it up to council for questions or comments.
Could you leave the checklist up there for discussion, Carolyn, please? Awesome. Thank you. I'm may I?
Yes,
Thank you.
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. At first, to be honest, I thought this is one more piece of red tape and it's going to be discouraging, but I understand, like, as a property owner, I'm going to go to, I'm going to get this form. Okay, I want to change my property now. I want to put in a sewer line or something. But so for example, if you're going to put in like a water line, does that require, excuse my ignorance, does not require a building permit per se? If I have like some of the lots in town have put in water stands, like water faucets, that does not require a building permit?
No, Daryl, do you want to speak to this? Usually you contact the Public Works Department when you're dealing something specific like that. This is
So
more this list is less about connections. This is more about what
building.
your parcel is and how it relates to other things going on around it.
Okay, so one could, like, if they were just doing like a water line, this would not be necessary. Could this be something that would be available for, say, somebody planning to purchase a property? So they would come to the planning department and say, I want to find out more about my like this potential purchase. Would that site alteration permit be a good vessel to get that information about it?
We already have a process for that. It's called a comfort letter. When people are thinking about purchasing a property, they write us and give us the address, and we go through everything. That's pretty standard across municipalities.
Do the realtors all know about that?
A lot of them do.
Okay, I don't.
And if not, they often reach out to me. I've had, gosh, probably at least 5 realtors have reached out to me over the last year.
Oh wow, that's great.
For something
So
like
what would be for just to humor me here? So for planning, for example, so I bring my property forward. I say I want to put 2 tiny homes in here. So like the planning would then say, okay, you're fine if you wanted, like, what exactly would be in there? Like, you're good to go. Please make sure that you know about your easement at the back. Public Works might be something similar.
We would just give comments, as you can see down below. They would just be very similar to what we do right now for other referrals. For example, a development permit or a development variance permit. We just get everybody to comment on it. And if when staff was doing it, they saw perhaps there was a hydro line running through it, then we would refer to them and get their comments as well. And so it's a really good package that you would get back that says, okay, planning says I better watch that
Sure.
side setback, and public works would
And this is a
the sewer line.
requirement? This
This
is
is just for their information. It's not a requirement, but it would be on the checklist for building permit.
so you do have to fill this out before you commence your building permit.
You would have to provide us with your property address, legal description, and all of that. You'd fill it out, and then I would, through the cloud permit system, make sure that Public Works, that they have awareness of the archaeology. There's like a line, whether there's outstanding taxes, perhaps on the property, things like that, so that when you get in the real cog of building permit, one of these things doesn't slow you down.
Would this though slow you down? Like if you're going to the archaeologist and you're going to look for liens, like I know that takes time. I've taken a title search myself to find out if there's a lien against a property. It takes time and staff resources. So would this slow us down? I know the intention is to speed it up in the end, but if I want to start today and I put that in to development, ostensibly it's going to take a lot of staff time and energy to go and contact Public Works. Now, are you doing with archaeology? Are you telling the property owner where their
we're
sites are?
simply telling them what's on their property and what's expected. We're
So you
not
will tell them
doing
if there's a site.
we would tell them what the process is for archaeological investigations, or the work program and all that work plan. Public Works would say, by the way, there's a sewer easement, and if you are connecting services, this is how you do it. So it is, I think, decades ago, when I first started my career, this was sort of a given. Someone would walk into the hall, everyone would come around. Now things are digitized and more formalized, and it's just to allow them to have some awareness. For example, some people don't know that they need to establish the pins on their property, and that can create an issue with neighbors. So it's really just giving them a bit more information other than just building permit, but there's also your property and what's going on with your property.
It's all the things they have to consider when they're going to be building.
But
I would-
people typically building a home know that. That's my hesitation, is this is time consuming for.
They do not know that, Councillor
No,
Toss.
no, not
I
necessarily.
was gonna say, I don't agree that people always know everything. And to me,
This should have the option.
this puts it on your radar. These are things I need to be aware of when I enter into this proposition or whatever. I think it will expedite the process. I know if I was coming into town, I've heard sort of some of those things, but to have one form that outlines all the things I need to be aware of would save me time. Otherwise, I'll surge forward and probably get tripped up and held back at some other later point because I didn't look into some of the details I needed to be aware of. I like it. I think it's helpful.
Diane, do you have a?
Mayor O'Connor, I just wanted to add, this actually came up as a result of a couple of things that happened where people weren't aware, and it didn't just cause issues for them; it causes issues for their neighbors as well. To Carolyn's point, if they don't establish their pins, if they don't know where their property lines are, if there is a sewer right of way and they start digging, that can be very problematic. So it's not just the property owner that this protects; it actually protects other people who have, who that property impacts, and sometimes it's us and sometimes it's other neighbors. So it's not intended to slow people down. It's intended to make sure that they have the information at the beginning, so they don't just go in and start doing stuff and then they have a problem, which will really slow them down. If that happens. So I think it's quite typical. We send things around within the office for referral in a day or two. It doesn't take very long to circulate it amongst staff. And if it's a rush, then Carolyn lets us know that it's a rush and we respond right away. So I don't think that that would slow it down at all, and potentially could really help keep people's projects on track so they don't get held up later on.
Thank you.
Before you ask your question.
No, I get my turn.
Councillor,
After that.
Thanks. What that made me think of, Carolyn and Diane, was was in the process of learning about all this in the last 5 years, people made assumptions about their property. And those assumptions were not always correct, like where their pins were and where their property lines were and where other things were. And so I think this could really help to sort of clear up any misunderstandings or misinformation that people might have just from living there for 40 years and they just didn't even know that that was what was going on there. So I can see the benefit there in our little community just in that alone. And so my understanding from what Diane was just saying is this is our staff. This is the village staff that will deal with this. This is not the TNRV building people. This is just Lytton. Yeah.
But it will also assist because like the CEO mentioned that we did have issues and said when things go sideways, then you've got inspectors involved and you've got building officials involved. And we had engineers out there looking in, we had our works crew. So I don't think anybody was doing it in malice. I think it just was lack of knowledge. And this is very standard across. It's the only difference is we're not charging. We're just going to do it really quickly and really just formalize what we've been doing, just so nothing's missed.
And to add to that, I don't think it's really a time-consuming process because, I can look at the mapping quite readily and in probably in 10, 15 minutes say, okay, you've got a water service here, you've got a right-of-way there. They may not understand the legal because, for example, you could have what's called witness pins, and you may have a pin, but it's not actually the property corner. So you have to understand some of those things. And ultimately, for public works side, we want to make sure that we're protecting, our drainage patterns, our services, et cetera, where they're not excavating and creating a frost issue. They're not putting too much fill and, creating excess load over top of our utilities. So we just want to have a quick look at things just to give, point them in the right direction, not to take a whole lot of time. Basically, I think in other municipalities, they call it basically a front service request where they will, somebody will come in and they'll say, okay, you've got this, and this, you got to look at that. So then they'll go away and they'll just make sure that they're heading down the right path.
It's optional usually though, but yeah.
Councillor Toss.
Yeah. So, what did you call that? Sorry, Daryl, just before you move on, you called it what I saw Carolyn nodding. It's not what we're calling it, but you called it a like front loading site.
Front counter request.
Yeah. So that is an optional request and I'd be more comfortable with that. So who's ultimately responsible for the turnaround on this? Like who's going to receive this and go through? Is it going to go to planning, then public works, then archaeology, or is Daryl going to take it? Or Carolyn going to take it and go to all those places? I'm really concerned about the time this will take and who ultimately will be making sure this is a 1 or 2 day.
We're not making any decisions on this today.
Well, we are voting on
just so you know, we do this now when we're aware of things, absolutely, but we're not often aware of things. So, as a matter of fact, in conversation over the past year with different people that wanted to do things, I often would do this. I'd reach out to, and everyone was very, very thankful. There is a typo on this. Sorry, I did this morning. It should be site alteration review. Councillor Toss, if people don't want to do it, I suppose it's just at their own risk. This is like a service.
That's my thinking. That's why it would make more sense to make it optional.
I don't know why you wouldn't do it, but because
absolutely. Okay, so the question was who is ultimately responsible? Who is going to receive this and process it?
But it goes through planning like most permits. So
Carolyn, you'll be doing the reaching out to all the different planning, public works, archaeology, or passing it around?
Yep.
You reach out. Sounds time consuming. So with the archaeology, does that go to the technical working group or is that just you looking at a map? Or?
To clarify, archaeology is simply to tell them what their requirements are. This is so planning would say, are you aware that you were zoned this? Are you aware that these are your setbacks? And public works similar. Are you aware there's an easement? It's not to say you shall do this. It is not a permit. It is a review and making sure that they are aware of what the archaeological expectations are through the HCA. But we're not digging deep and it's not site specific. It's an overview.
Okay, are you using the management direction letters provided from the technical working group for archaeology or the legislated Heritage Conservation Act?
It's very similar to what is on our website.
Thank you.
Councillor Michelle, do you have any comments?
No, I would be for having that included. It would just make sense to get that done.
Anything else from any council? Okay, so let's have a motion, please, to receive this report for information. Councillor Lightfoot, seconded by Councillor McCann. All those in favor? Opposed?
I think it should be optional.
And carried. All right, that brings us now to the end of this committee of the whole meeting. So we do need a motion to adjourn.
Sure.
Councillor McCann, seconded by Toss. Thank you, Councillor Toss. All right, thank you everyone for attending the meeting, and I'll turn it back over to Corporate Officer Storchenko.
Thank you, Mayor Connor. So that concludes the committee of the whole meeting for May 5th. Thank you for attending. I wish everyone a wonderful day.